I'm Angela Pitchengelli, and I'm 23 years old, and I'm from Jacksonville, North Carolina. This is my first year as a missionary, as a foreign missionary, and I want to tell you about that call. And I guess I'll preface it by saying I really could go on, for a very long time, because there's so many moments and things that led me to this call, and will eventually be leading me to Peru, which is where I'll be serving this next year. So I grew up in North Carolina, obviously, and I grew up in a military family, and something that I think I've always understood and kind of wanted in my life was this idea of sacrifice and obedience and fidelity to something more than just myself. And I recognized that in my father, in the way that he served, and that was something appealing to me really at a young age. And so whenever I really began to encounter the Lord, I knew that I wanted to give myself to him. I wanted to respond to him in a way that required those things, and because I knew that I had lived with these things, but when I encountered the Lord, I realized that the only way to live into these things was in love, the way that Jesus had done for me. And so fast forward, a couple of years, and I went to college and encountered more community of people trying to live out their faith. And this organization that worked with our college called the Evangelical Catholic, they really, at least for me, they ingrained this love and passion for evangelization and discipleship, and really honed in on that call of the gospel, and that it is the call of a Christian to live into the gospel message and to share that with other people. And so as I was going through college, that passion was growing, and in the meantime I decided that I was being called to study social work, and really loved the poor and service to the poor. And I realized, as I was going through college, these two passions were growing, this passion for service and this passion for evangelization and discipleship. And I fast forward to, about a semester before I was going to graduate, I was coming out of a pretty serious relationship, and, was pretty heartbroken about it, and really felt that was where God was calling me, but soon realized that I was honestly fooling myself in a lot of ways, and settling to something that I just didn't quite understand, maybe out of fear or whatever. I came out of that relationship, and I was really seeking what God wanted for me after graduation. And so by God's providence, my family was going on a 3-week cross-country trip. And so it was like this set apart time and space to be able to pray pretty intentionally about that. And so I set aside time every day for this specific intention, and just praying about it and discerning it with the Lord and asking what he wanted of me. And I had encountered people that went on mission trips before, but honestly didn't really consider if God was calling me to that. And so during our time on this trip, I kept hearing in prayer the Lord reveal to me that his heart is for the masses and for the world. And so pretty quickly I realized that the Lord was calling me away, out of myself and even out of the country, and which was very strange for me because I had never encountered mission. And at that time, I was also starting an internship at a nursing home and rehab. And in that internship, which I loved, I encountered so many people on their deathbed and really in just crisis situations. And one of the things I noticed while I was there was a lack of hope and a very real fear of death. And for me, it opened to my eyes that I can't give these people what they really need. And the Lord revealed that what they need is Him and hope of salvation. And I realized at that time, as I came across Family Missions Company, that God is not only calling me to do good things for the poor, but to bring Him and bring hope to the poor. And so, and to those who were in crisis, and to suffer with them and be with them in it. And so Family Missions Company, when I found it, I just was like blown away, online. I read everything on their website and was just eating it up, and just super drawn in. And I came and I remember sitting in the chapel next door and realizing I was like crying tears of joy and just be like, wow, Jesus, like this is everything I had hoped for, everything that I thought was too high of a thing to desire. The first day I was in the chapel, I was like, okay, Jesus, like here's my yes, and it was almost like it was like his hand was here, but I was like putting the yes here, like not directly in his hand. And so he wasn't taking it. And there was like this feeling of, why aren't you excited with me? Like, why aren't you taking this with excitement the way I am? And I realized like every day I was going and doing the same thing, like, here, Jesus, here's my yes. Like, okay, like, but there was still like some unsettlement and I didn't understand why. And I realized during that time of prayer and discernment and all that I was saying yes, but with strings attached. There was a certain expectation I was holding on to, certain fears and anxieties, and one of those in particular was my family, and being apart from them. And it was particularly hard for me because I lost my father 5 years ago, and so my family, there was a certain, commitment I felt that I needed to be with them at all times, and care for them and in that way. And I realized that in a lot of ways I wasn't trusting the Lord in that. And so one day during one of Kevin's talks, it was kind of a practical talk of like what to expect, like if you decide to do this. And he mentioned Matthew chapter 10, which is the commissioning of the disciples where Jesus sends them out. And there was a feeling in my mind that I knew I needed to read it, and I could feel tears welling up, and I was like, oh no, like this is gonna be one of those moments where the Lord kind of speaks into something that is hard for me. And so I opened it up, and I have it here, verses 37 and 39 of chapter 10. I went to immediately, and it says, whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever does not take up his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And I just remember the reality of like scripture is a double-edged sword, it just really struck me at the heart. And I realized in that moment that that's what the Lord needed from me. He wanted to take that from me, and he wanted me to be free of the way that I was idolizing those things. And in that time, like after I finished weeping and was able to like say, okay, Jesus, like I trust you with this and I want you to have this, I was able to say that yes. And he took it, and he finally took it. And it's been an incredible journey, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I know that the Lord's gonna continue to have those heart-piercing moments of truth, that draw us into his will for us. And I'm just glad that he revealed that to me when he did. So that's my call to missions. And it's been an incredible journey. So.